First, let me just tell you some of the stark facts. Last year, our budget deficit was the largest it has ever been in our peacetime history. This year, it is set to be among the largest in the world. According to the IMF and the European Commission, it will be the largest in the G7 and the largest in the European Union. This is the legacy of 13 years of fiscal irresponsibility, and it poses a very real threat to the recovery. And that is why this new coalition is founded on an agreement to significantly accelerate the reduction in the deficit, starting this year. This is not about party interest, it's about the national interest. The advice that we have received from the Treasury and the Bank of England make that clear. Those who argue that action can be safely delayed for another 11 months would put our economy at risk for the sake of short-term political advantage. The last few weeks have shown quite how urgent the necessary action has become. Greece is a reminder of what happens when governments lack the willingness to act decisively and quickly, and when problems are swept under the carpet. The result is sharp increases in interest rates, worsening recession, growing unemployment. At one point, interest rates in Greece increased by a full 10 percentage points. The dangers were clear when I spoke to finance ministers from around the world on Friday. The European package that was agreed last weekend has solved the immediate liquidity crisis, but it has not solved the underlying solvency crisis. The threat has not gone away, and I know people everywhere are worried about what this means for them. And they are asking themselves, will I be affected? What does it mean for my job, my family, for my children's future? And to them I say, if we fail to tackle the deficit we inherited from the previous government, the consequences could be disastrous. If we don't get on top of our debt, every family in Britain will be poorer, and the dreams of millions of young people will be dashed. Mortgages will be higher. Businesses will go bust, and debt interest will become one of the largest items of government spending. We urgently need to restore confidence in our economy, and we need the determination to act quickly in the short term in order to establish credibility for the longer term. So what will we do? The first part of our approach is to boost credibility and confidence in the UK's fiscal framework. In short, we urgently need a full independent assessment of how bad the problem really is. As the IMF has said, strong fiscal institutions can enhance the credibility of consolidation plans. I could not agree more. Over the last 13 years, the public and the markets have completely lost confidence in government economic forecasts. The last government's forecasts for growth in the economy over the past 10 years have on average been out by £13 billion each year. Their forecasts on the budget deficit 3 years ahead have on average been out by £40 billion. Unsurprisingly, these forecasting errors have almost always been in the wrong direction. The conclusion is clear. We need long-lasting change in the way we put together budgets in this country. The final decision on the forecast has always been made by the Chancellor, not by independent officials. And that is precisely the problem. Again and again, the temptation to fiddle the figures, to nudge up a growth forecast here or reduce a borrowing number there to make the numbers add up has proved too great. And that is a significant part of the reason for our current problems. I believe the public should be able to trust official forecasts for the economy. I want independent forecasts to become the norm. And this will inevitably mean giving away some of my powers as Chancellor. Of course, the elected government will still set the overall fiscal goals of the government and the extent to which fiscal policy expands or contracts at each budget. And of course, it will retain control over tax and spending decisions. These are properly decisions for elected politicians, accountable to Parliament and to voters. But I am the first Chancellor to remove the temptation to fiddle the figures by giving up control of the economic and fiscal forecast. I recognise that this will create a rod for my back down the line and for the backs of future chancellors. That is the whole point. We need to fix the budget to fit the figures, not fix the figures to fit the budget. To do this, I am today establishing a new independent Office for Budget Responsibility. For the first time, we will have a truly independent assessment of the state of the nation's finances. So that they can get to work immediately, the OBR will initially operate on a non-statutory basis, just as the Monetary Policy Committee operated before it was enshrined in legislation. It will be headed by Sir Alan Budd, one of the most respected fiscal and macroeconomic experts in our country. He is a man of immense integrity and indisputable independence, having worked for governments of both right and left, and he was appointed as an inaugural member of the Monetary Policy Committee by Gordon Brown. I'm very glad, Alan, that you're with us today. He will be joined by two other independent experts who are with us today as well, Geoffrey Dix and Graham Parker, and together they will form the Budget Responsibility Committee. With the help from a Secretariat of Civil Servants, they will be in charge of making independent forecasts for the economy and the public finances. They will have direct control over that forecast. They will make all the key judgments, and they will produce the fiscal numbers that underpin government policy in the Budget Red Book. But I don't think that we can afford to wait until the budget for an independent assessment of the true state of the public finances. So the first of the OBR's forecasts will be published ahead of the emergency budget. Everyone will be able to see the scale of the problem to which the budget must provide the solution. I have asked the Treasury to give Alan and the committee full access to all the data, all the assumptions, all the economic models, and because they will also have a role over the coming months in the exposing all the hidden liabilities and the long-term pressures facing us as a country, they will have access to that information too, looking at the cost of our ageing society, public service pensions, or the cost of outstanding PFI contracts, for example. For the first time, we will have an independently audited and transparent national balance sheet. In due course, the OBR will be put on a statutory footing with legislation in the Queen's speech next week. And at the budget, I will announce the overall path we intend to pursue for the public finances and against which the OBR will judge the government's fiscal policy. For each budget and pre-budget report, they will confirm whether the government's policy is consistent with a better than 50% chance of achieving that objective. That means there will be nowhere to hide the debts, no way to fiddle the figures, and no way of avoiding the difficult choices that have been put off for far too long. Now, with all these changes, fiscal policy in this country will be at the cutting edge of international best practice, making us one of the few advanced economies with an independent fiscal agency that produces official fiscal and economic forecasts. Given that many countries face similar fiscal challenges, though few on a similar scale, I hope that the world will look with interest at our policy innovations. So the first part of our approach is a truly independent audit of the public finances. But it is not enough just to know the scale of the problem. We need to show that we have a determination to fix it, and that means making a start this year. The Coalition have agreed that £6 billion of savings to the non-frontline public services should be made this financial year. The Departments for Health, Defence and International Development will also make savings, but they will be reinvested in their front lines. The Coalition have also agreed that given the state of the public finances, the great majority of the £6 billion of savings from other departments will be used to reduce the deficit. Some proportion will be used to support jobs in a targeted and effective way, as set out in the Coalition agreement, for example through cancelling of some backdated demands for business rates. It is the clear view of the Treasury and the Governor of the Bank of England that these are the necessary actions to ensure economic stability and secure the recovery. The Treasury's assessment is that there is a strong economic case for an immediate spending reduction of £6 billion. The Governor, when presenting his inflation report last week, said it was right for a new government to, in his words, put in place a serious plan to tackle the fiscal deficit and to make clear it was serious about it